Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to OAA Now on this cold and snowy day here. I'm Sammy Taormina, host of Between Taorminas, host of Last Week Brain Cells, 2026 ON TV Fantasy Football Champion. Of course, I'm holding a trophy here on Orion Neighborhood Television. I'd like to welcome those watching on a local voice on SoundCloud and those watching on Orion Neighborhood Television. A lot to look at here this week here on the podcast. We're going to talk about what's going on at Farmington. Obviously, of course, some Jason Albrecht stepping down. We're going to talk about what's next for Farmington. Obviously, they're not going to be in the OAA too much longer. They're going to be in the Lakes Valley next year. So we're going to break that down. We're going to talk a lot of basketball stuff. Certain teams we got to break down, obviously, and I think that's something we really got to look at as we head into the upcoming, heading in during part of the winter that we look at. So without further ado, let's look at our main story here, of course, in football. Jason Albrecht stepped down at Farmington. Of course, he did have a losing record, but last 2 years, he made the playoffs at Farmington at his alma mater. 5 years, did a really nice job over there. Did a really, really nice job at Farmington. I know he's been on the podcast numerous times. We talked about several things with Farmington. Felt like this was time for him to take a step back. I've heard a lot of rumblings, but for Coach Albrecht, felt this was the right time to leave. Of course, Farmington is going into the Lakes Valley Conference next season with North Farmington, also with the Livonia schools. So you think about Farmington, yes, you do have a very good player, Miles Turner, coming back. But as I mentioned, when my BT co-host Anthony Taormina and host History Now, co-host Anthony Taormina, we talked about host Anthony Taormina, by the way. We talked about what this is going to do with Farmington. I think the impacts are going to be is, you really think about with them is, what's going to happen. When they leave the OA and head to the Lakes Valley Conference, is it an upgrade for them or is it a downgrade? That's the big question and the challenge that Farmington's going to have to face going forward. Now you add the fact that they're going to have a new coach in there, and you're going into a new conference where, you're somewhat familiar with, and, obviously you got your arch rival in North Farmington. You got the Livonia schools, Livonia Franklin, Livonia Stevenson, Livonia Churchill. Plus, you're adding Lakeland, Milford, and the Three-Wall Lake, Central, Western, and Northern, plus the South Lyon schools. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt, how they respond in the Lakes Valley with a new head coach. So, a lot of challenges for Farmington going forward. Losing Albrecht's a big, big loss. But it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with Albrecht. You look at, of course, in the OAA with their coaching vacancies, the jobs at Avondale and Berkeley are open right now within the OAA schools. Hanging next year. I'm curious to see who takes both these jobs at Avondale and also at Berkeley. I'm very, very curious to see how that goes. And I think it'll be interesting to see how those two jobs apply here. And I think it's going to be the big question that we're going to have to keep an eye on when you look at Farmington, when you look at Avondale, when you look at Berkeley. So those are the two jobs in the OAA that I'll be curious to see. Of course, we'll keep an eye on it. With Albrecht, obviously, of course, hometown lights, Brendan Fossum confirmed that he was stepping down. And you look at the job he's done, lead him in the playoffs, he's led Farmington honestly to in his 6 years with the program, he's led him to 4 playoff appearances. So, so he's done a magnificent job taking over for Coach John Bechtel at Farmington. He's done a really, really good job. I'll be curious to see where his next endeavor is going to be. I'll be very curious to see. Of course, Albright is a 2006 graduate at Farmington High School. Of course, 2006, of course, was the same year I graduated from high school. So, be curious to see what he does. I mean, I'll be curious to see how Farmington responds with his departure. I'll be curious to see how things go with Coach Albright. So I'll be curious to see. Avondale, obviously, they gotta go through a program change. Berkeley, I don't really see much of a rebuild there, but I'll be curious to see what happens. Be very, very curious to see how things go, how things operate, and I'll be curious to see how things will go. So we'll see what happens. Let's now go to the basketball front. You look at, of course, the storylines around basketball. Obviously we've talked a lot about the girls. Obviously, couple teams right now that are red hot right now. Groves right now stands to be on a tear right now. They are on a tear. I mean, 86.5 a game, last 5 games. I mean, they've been streaking. And a lot of that, you look at, of course, the play of Harlem Simpson, obviously. I know she had 42 against Lake Orion. You look at, of course, they have a freshman who's made some noise as well. And I got to remember her name. But you look at what Groves has been doing. You kind of think, you kind of go back to what I know the last time girls won a district championship was in I think it was 2021. I know it was under Coach Antoine Simpkins. And then, everything just, after 1 year leading a district championship, then, they had that rough off season where Simpkins was let go. Simpkins has done a really nice job at Detroit Cass Tech. But Jessica Doublet comes in, obviously, and taking over for, and I gotta remember my memory bank here, but but Doublet's done a really nice job with this program. I mean, her first year there, it was rough, and it was a very, very rough experience. And you kind of really think about, it's going to come down to is Ken Groves. I think it's going to come down to it's going to come down for her is can she make a deep run, and can Groves surpass expectations? I mean, I know that they had 2 early season losses to Livonia Stevenson and Farmington Hills Mercy, and you kind of think about with Groves is how much they've learned, and then when they went on the streak, when they had that streak where you think about with Groves, and and obviously the first year, you know what I mean, what they had when they played the Livonia Stevenson, of course, them coached by former coach Allison Heidi. I finally figured it out now because I had to do some research on it. I mean, but Heidi did a really good job with the limited with the talent she had there. She did a really good job. So what Double has done is she has really put Groves on on the map, and and I think a lot of that you got to give Heidi credit too for that, considering the job that, you know what I mean, obviously, but also the athletic department there, Tom Flynn, he did a really nice job when he named Heidi the coach, and then, of course, going with Double. Um, you look at what Groves has done, and this is the second year for Double, and she did she's done a very good job with the talent that she's had. And obviously, when you have a player like Harlem Simpson, um, who has really taken, I think, taken the state by storm, with the way she's been playing, and the fact that this team has been scoring over 80 points. You look at, of course, the system Double runs is it's almost similar to that of Detroit Renaissance, where fast paced and want to pressure you. And I read the article that Brandon Fossum wrote on Groves. I read that, and pretty much, she said we're gonna go to the red, and they've made a very strong case to go to the red. But here's my question: you look at the next 2 years. How is that going to look? It's obviously when Simpson leaves, obviously, what's Groves gonna look like in 2 years? Are they ready for it? Because next year I think they're gonna be in the red. For me, it's 2 years. It's after Simpson leaves. They do lose JC Roy, but program strength to me is my biggest concern when I look at Groves. Because there's not another Harlem Simpson coming within that program. There's not. Harlem Simpson is a special talent. But you have to look at what Groves is, when your program strength, your JV program, you got to build a freshman program. If you want to have sustained success in the red, you're going to have to build 3 programs. You look at the teams that have sustained success. You kind of say what Clarkston is. Yes, they don't have a freshman this year, but still they're having success. But I'll tell you what, Clarkston next year they're going to have 3 programs because their 8th grade class coming up is very good. So you look at the teams that have 3 programs. You look at, of course, Clarkston. You look at Lake Orion. You look at Oxford. You look at West Bloomfield. You look at Rochester. You look at West Bloomfield. All those programs in the red have 3 programs. So if I'm Jessica Dubla, I think you're going to have to start thinking maybe get a freshman team to build a freshman program. Because you look at, of course, the more numbers you have, the better your program is stable. So that's my take with Groves is the way that team has been just destroying everybody. And I look at Groves and I look at that comment that Double said that we're gonna be in the red. This year and next year, that's fine. But in 2 years or longer, that's where I have to worry. Because if I'm Double, because long term to be in the red and to sustain success in the red, it's going to require a lot of work. And you can't just put it on this year and next year. You're going to have to do it like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years, maybe even 5 years from now. So that's an interesting, that was a very interesting comment. But I think short-term wise, Groves to me is ready for the red. But long-term wise, I don't know. So you think of that right now, I think Groves is going to win the white pretty handily. And, and I say that right now with confidence, considering what they did to Royal Oak. Considering, Bloomfield Hills, yes, they got Brielle Brooks, but I just don't think they match up with Groves, when it comes to guards. Berkeley, I've been very disappointed with this year. I really think that I've really been disappointed with the guards at Berkeley. Seaholm, of course, has had issues scoring. So, that division for Groves is pretty much in the easy to take. So, and you look at that district, you know what I mean? That district that Groves is in, that too could be pretty easy to take because, yes, you got to go to Bloomfield Hills, but you see them twice. You look at Birmingham Marion, they're struggling. North Farmington, yes, they're having a good year, but they're not but I don't think they match up well with Groves at all. When it comes to the pressure that they're going to bring. So that district for Groves, for me, when I look at Groves, this could be a team that could be a regional final team. Depending if they have to see Labonte Stevenson again or Fontaines Mercy, even though those two teams are in the same district. So I think for Groves, I think this could be a good year for them. I think this could be a very special year for them. But they gotta keep on. They gotta keep going. You know what I mean? They gotta keep going. I mean, they've been tested early. 0-2 start, 1-7 straight. I mean, and they're clicking on all cylinders. So they've beaten two red teams already in Rochester and Lake Orion. So, but I'll be curious to see. The danger for Groves is 2 years from now, because when they lose Simpson, because that is a hard player. That's a tough player to replace in Harlem Simpson. And it wouldn't surprise me next year if she's in the conversation for Miss Basketball in the state of Michigan. Really wouldn't. So, Groves right now is off to a very, very torrid start right now. I mean, they are rolling right now. There's a team I've got some concerns about, obviously. You look at some teams that I got some concerns about. I mean, another team that's been red hot right now, and I don't think a lot of people talking about is Troy Athens. And you look at Troy Athens, they're sitting at 8-2 right now. And, the Red Hawks are a team that I think can make a run. I mean, they are more than capable. You got to give Coach J.C. Klump a lot of credit. Also, you got to get a lot of that as the play of Katrina Tasic. I mean, you look at what Tasic has done. She stabilized the guard situation. She stabilized a lot of things. And you look at Troy Athens in the blue, and you say to yourself, okay. I mean, Troy Athens, we talk about with them has been consistency. They've been very inconsistent. And I know Coach Klump looks at the records, and this year they're off to a very good start. I mean, their two losses are to two teams that are not bad. When you look at Labonte Stevenson and Lake Orion, those are. You look at, of course, with Lake Orion's case, I mean, yes, they're a very young team, but, it's going to take them some time. I mean, and Labonte Stevenson, we know right now sits at 10-1. So, you think about with way Athens is playing, could they make a run? They got a good chance, I think, to make a deep run. Now, the team that I think will threaten Troy, Athens, is their arch rival, Troy. And the reason why I say that is because you look at Athens, you look at Troy. Troy, yes, they're 5-2, but you look at what Troy's got. You look at, of course, you got Macy Zeider there, Carly Higginbottom there, Olivia Sprangler there. I mean, you look at Troy. Troy's been a team that has had lofty expectations year in, year out. And, you look at Troy, you look at them last year, they played a tough schedule, but really struggled out the gate. So you think about with Troy and Troy Athens, this could be a time where they could see each other 3 times. I mean, they could really see each other 3 times. And even in the blue, it's not easy Because you look at a team like you got Harper Woods who's sitting there at 3-2. Adams, I think, is much improved than coach Justin Howard. So and A&T's been a team that's up and down. So you think about with Athens, the way they've been on a really good start as well. They're a team that's sitting real nice right now at 8-2. Those are my two teams that I've been really surprised with to start the year. I mean, really, really surprised. Now, teams I've got some concerns about. I mean, like, you really think about, you have the strength, you have the surprises. Now the teams I have some concerns. And, you look at the teams that I'm mostly concerned about. And, the first team you think about, people think about for me would be Lake Orion. And the reason why I say Lake Orion, right now, this is a team that's a very young team. They got some good wins. I mean, Romeo's a big win for them. Troy At's a big win for them. But that schedule is so brutal for Coach Bob Bridges. It is so brutal. And they've went through Stony Creek. They've went through Groves. They still got to play Rochester. You still got to play Clarkson. Got to play West Bloomfield. That's not even counting Kingston. Kingston's gonna be a very difficult game for Lake Orion. You look at this team, and this is a very young team. And Lake Orion right now, when I look at the Dragons, you have two capable scorers in Kelsey King and Kara Veter. They're gonna have to score at least 10, 15 points a night, both of them, for Lake Orion to have a chance. And then Lake Orion's going to have to defend. The problem here for Lake Orion is when they don't take care of the ball, their inexperience shows. And that's been their biggest issue. And I know it's frustrated Coach Bridges. I know it's frustrated everybody. But also when you look at Lake Orion, you have to be patient. Because you look at this Dragon team, they have program strengths on their side. When you look at, they do have a JVB program. They do have a JVA program. Plus, the 8th grade class coming in is solid. So, you think about with Lake Orion, I would say to them, you get them now, because I'll tell you what, next year, maybe 2 years as well, maybe 2, 3 years, 2, 3, 4 years, it's going to be a very dangerous team. So, so I'm saying right now, if you're the league, you get Lake Orion right now, but I'll tell you what, between next year and the next 4 or 5 years, watch out. I'm telling you. I mean, Lake Orion's extremely young this year. Very young. But they're competitive. So, I'm not pressing the panic button. Do I got concerns? Absolutely. But I think long term, this team's fine. This program's fine. Short term, they're just going through right now. A team that I'm really concerned about is North Farmington. North Farmington right now sits at 7-1. But they haven't played the schedule. They haven't played the schedule to like I would say Lake Orion has. Lake Orion's played a brutal schedule. Really brutal. North Farmington, I've got serious concerns with this team. Yes, they're rolling right now. Then they're going to say, Sammy, why do you got concerns about North Farmington? Because of the schedule. You look at the schedule, and it says to me, I don't know. I mean, can Lucy Nemeth prove it against the Groves or a Bluefield Hills or even the Juggernauts of the Red? That's the question for Coach Michael Allen. And you look at that district that they have. Groves is staring at them. You got Seaholm there, Bluefield Hills there. It's going to be a tall task. There's a reason why in the NPR North Farmington right now sits at 5. There is a reason. I will be curious to see how they play against Farmington, how they play against Waterford. I know North Farmington did beat Waterford. Waterford, that's one of their best. That's one of North Farmington's best wins of the year. The question that I have is, can North do this against a team like a Bluefield Hills or I mean, you know they ain't gonna match up with Groves or anybody in the red, but that is a team that I've got some concerns about, based on competition wise. You know, you know, that's one area that I have concerns. I mean, you look at with Lake Orion's case, that is schedule. I mean, North Farmington, it's competition. And the third team that I have and I'm mostly concerned about, and I said this on air for weeks, it's still Stony Creek. Here's why. You had the Avash sisters. Sam Folkers has been playing much better. You have, I mean, like, and then you have Jalen Freeman. You look at a course, I'm not looking at the division. I'm not looking at the red, precisely with Stony Creek. I am looking at Utica Eisenhower when it comes to Stony Creek. Yes, I know last year they lost in very controversial fashion. But also in that game, they made mistakes. So the reason why I have concerns for Stony Creek is because the Turner Twins are a year better. Ike has played a tough schedule. They've got some good wins. They know how to play different styles. And that district's at home for Ike. Now, for Stony Creek, they're going to say, well, why would we, now for Stony Creek, I say, like, well, why? I mean, like, why? Because they beat us our place last year. Here's the problem for Stony Creek. That district is tougher than people think. Because one, you got Rochester in there. Rochester's a completely different team without Alice Max and Kylie Robinson. I mean, Stella Marlowe's a very good player. They got other good players. Plus, Andrew Toppy knows how to coach. 2, Romeo. Romeo is better than people think. They're 8-2 right now. I mean, they beat Rochester. But then you could say that loss to Lake Orion. They did also lose to Lake Orion. So, Romeo is a very dangerous team. You look at, of course, that district. Utica right now sits at the 5 seed. Right now, I think it would be, I don't know why Stony Creek right now is the 3, but Romeo and Stony would be playing each other if that district were announced. And then Rochester would have to go play Utica and likely be staring at Utica Eisenhower. Now, why is Stony Creek on this? Why am I concerned with Stony? Depth is a concern for me when I look at Stony and for Coach Columbus Williams. Do they have the depth to match up against the Utica Eisenhower? That is my biggest concern with Stony Creek. Do they have the depth? And that, to me, is a big-time concern when I look at the Cougars. Now, when you look at Stony Creek, you kind of think about, you think about what Stony is. Can this team adapt, especially when they have to play disciplined basketball? Because there were times last year Stony Creek was not disciplined, and it cost them games. You could say the Utica Eisenhower game. Stony Creek was not disciplined enough. Can they make the change this time around if they see Ike? I don't know. So that's a team I'm very concerned about going forward to Stony Creek. So you think about with so you think about it, those are my teams that I'm concerned. You know, I mean, I could put West Bloomfield on this list, but I think they're going to be fine. I could put Clarkson on this list. I think they're going to be fine. Lake Orion, you know what I mean? Like, yes, they're young, but the schedule is the one I'm most concerned about with Lake Orion. So you think about, but on a positive for Lake Orion, though, the MPR, that'll help them long term. So, I mean, all those losses, those 4 losses they have, are the teams that are right now seated either 1 or 2 in the MPR right now in their respective districts. So, and Lake Orion's got a pretty high MPR right now. So, you look at a course based on the divisions right now. Gold, I still think it's North Farmington's division to lose, even though I put them on my concern list. Farmington, I've got some questions with them. Ferndale U, I still can't figure out why they're high in the MPR. I mean, like, despite not playing in a while. Oak Park's is at 2 and 3. Came off a rough one in Waterford. Pontiac's been struggling. I don't know what's going on with Pontiac. I really don't know what's going on with them. They're struggling. So I would say right now, North, Farmington, Waterford, Ferndale U, Oak Park, Pontiac. Blue, I think it's Troy Athens, Troy, Adams, A&T, Harper Woods, Ferndale. Ferndale played their first game recently and got pummeled by Troy. 63-5. And I asked myself, why is Ferndale ranked high in the NPR when they only played 1 game? So that's my biggest beef in the NPR with them. But I think that's how it is right now. How I'm seeing it. And then in the white, it's obviously Groves, Bloomfield Hills. Berkeley. I would put Avondale here on this one here. I mean, Avondale, I think once they get seasoned, I think they're going to be fine. So I would say right now it's Groves, Bloomfield Hills, Avondale, Royal Oak, Berkeley. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. Groves, Bloomfield Hills, Seaholm, Avondale, Royal Oak, Berkeley. Even though Berkeley did beat Royal Oak, I just got concerns with Royal Oak, the way that they're hot and cold right now. Berkeley's been my biggest disappointment this year. I thought Berkeley would be better coming into the year, but they have not. So that to me is a big, big concern there. Is I just been very disappointed with Berkeley the way they've been playing. And then in the red, you have Clarkston, you have West Bloomfield, Stony Creek. Then I would say Oxford, Rochester, Oxford, Lake Orion. Lake Orion, obviously, the youth, the schedule. Those are my biggest concerns with Lake Orion. Oxford, obviously they got Caitlin Brockway. Rochester, we know, has been a team that defensively they play a 2-3 zone, but offensively they're very good. They're solid offensively. And then West Bloomfield, I still think they're better than Stony. Based on, you got Sheridan Beal. Stony Stoney, of course, we know they got the Vosh sisters, Sam Pokerson and Jalen Freeman. Bench concerns me with Stoney. And then Clarkston, they've been on a roll right now. Well, they've played a tough schedule. So their record is pretty deceiving. Obviously they got Bridgeport coming up. But you still have Eliana Roback. You have Brooklyn Colbert. You have Ava Wasilic. You have Bella Flavin. I mean, there's 4 really good players on that team with Clarkston. And then, program strength wise, it's a one-off for them. I think next year they're going to have 3 teams. Especially with that freshman class coming in, of course, led by Soapy Robbins. So for Coach Aaron Goodenow, I think he's going to be fine. I'm not too worried. When you look at it from a program strength perspective, I would say right now, from a program strength perspective, I would say Clarkston, Lake Orion. Right now, from a program strength perspective, I think those are the 2 teams to really watch for when it comes to building program strength. And I think those are the 2 programs that could seriously make some noise within the next 3, 4, or 5 years. Is both the Wolves and the Dragons, I think, could make some serious noise. Oxford, I got a little bit of concern with them. I know they got a very talented freshman coming up in the program. Now people are going to say, well, why not put Groves in this conversation? I've got very much big time concerns with Groves in the next 2, 3 years. I got some big concerns with them. So that's my take right now on the girls' side of things is, you really look at the concerns that I have program strength wise in the future of girls basketball is you got to look at things 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. You got to look at that because clearly that's what's going to look like within the future. Then let's look at the boys. Boys, you kind of think about with them is teams that I'm high on, teams I'm not high on, teams you should be patient with, teams that you panic. I know Avondale had that big win against Clarkston, but I still got some concerns with Avondale. And I'll explain why there. I really asked what's going on with Lake Orion, having 2 tough losses. Is Stony Creek back? Can somebody tame Rochester? I mean, those are a lot of storylines. And then, obviously in the blue, can anybody tame Bluefield Hills? I mean, so really, I'm going to describe every team I've been impressed with, teams I got some serious concerns about. I'm going to start off team that's been really impressing me lately has been, I've been impressed with, of course, I've been impressed with Rochester because you look at this Rochester team and they got a starting 5 that's really good. You look at, Nate Tandy fits that power forward spot. Ben Bissett's been a really big time addition to the post. Luke Lauer's been your energy guy. Andy DiCero's been really good at the 2-guard spot, and then Logan Pleasant at the point guard spot. I mean, if you're Coach Nick Ebola, that is a dream lineup. Bench, I kind of got a little concerned with, but when I look at the pace that Rochester plays with, people look at Rochester and say that the strength of schedule hasn't been the strongest. Their non-conference, of course, their best win in the non-conference was Chippewa Valley. I know they had to survive Troy. And then when they get in the league play, they've been handling their business. So I think with Rochester, I'm curious to see how can they sustain this. Can they sustain is the big question for Rochester. Can this team sustain? And so far, they passed the eyeball test. They got Lake Orion coming up. They have that crosstown with Stony Creek coming up as well, which is going to be very interesting. But way Rochester's playing, I think it's going to be interesting to see, is there anybody there that can beat Rochester? Could Stony Creek do it? Could Adams do it? Could Lake Orion do it? Could Waterfront do it? I mean, and they played Oxford, and Oxford held Rochester to 45 points. So with Rochester, they're a machine right now. I know they say strength in numbers. Okay. But I do got some concerns with Rochester. There are some concerns. There's some question marks. Can they sustain? That's the big question. So far, they're enjoying it right now. So Rochester's been my team that I've been really impressed with. The NPR are finally giving them a lot of respect. The respect that they deserved. So Rochester right now, they're clicking on all cylinders right now. Then, you look at another team that's been a surprise for me has been Oak Park. Oak Park sits at 5-2. The way that this team plays defense. Could Oak Park be a factor in the goal? I mean, they've done a really good job holding teams under 30 points. If they hold teams under 30, they usually win. They usually win those games. So you think about with Oak Park, it's when if they give up over 30, they're 0-2. Could that be sustainable? I mean, they just knocked off Waterford Kettering, held them to 27 points. But they haven't played a game in a while. I think a lot of that's been the weather. And I've had some debates about the weather situation. A lot of teams have had postponements because of the roads. I mean, the roads have not been great. The weather coming up, you know what I mean? I mean, like, you're going to have, it's going to be cold. But that's what winter is in Michigan. I mean, you're going to have to make up your league games. And I know some school districts have no school no game policies. But when I look at this policy, you're going to have to play games. I mean, there's a mental component to all this. And I've said this during the pandemic, the mental component. But I get safety's an issue. I get safety is a concern. So I'm curious to see how schools react to, with the roads and also the temperature coming up. So, but Oak Park, but a little before I'm off topic, Oak Park right now has been a team I've been really surprised with. You put Avondale in this conversation, they're off to a great start, but also there's some concern. And I'll talk about the concern about Avondale in a minute. But Avondale right now, they're playing well on all cylinders. They're playing Max Small. You got Jacoby Loris, way he's been playing. Avondale right now, they're clicking. Their only loss is to a very good Freeland team. And I mean a very good Freeland team. But they've been battle tested. But here's the concern I have with Avondale. And this comes to districts. Because they're in that tough district with Lake Orion, Waterford, and Clarkston. If Avondale has to see Lake Orion in the second round, Lake Orion can match them. They can match them. Despite the struggles that Lake Orion's had, this past week. Athletic-wise, Avondale is very gifted. They're very talented. They're well coached. But if they have to play Lake Orion, that could be an interesting game. A real interesting game. And Lake Orion right now sits at that 4 seed in that district. For Avondale, is playing Waterford Mott better in the second round than Lake Orion? If I'm Coach Aaron Fox, he'll probably say, "Oh, I know we'll play anybody." But for me, when it comes to Avondale, I think for them, I think playing Waterford Mott in the second round is a lot better than playing Lake Orion. And I'm not being mean to Waterford Mott or anybody in Avondale. I'm just saying, when I look at the matchup situations, I think for Avondale, I think playing Waterford Mott might be better for them than playing Lake Orion. And then you look at, of course, they beat Clarkston earlier in the week. 5-point game. They still got to go to Clarkston. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be tough. I mean, when Clarkston hits threes, look out. Ask North Farmington that question. North Farmington's been a team that I've been really concerned about because there's games where they just don't look very good. And they're coming off 2 very tough losses. I mean, they lost to Pontiac A&T in overtime. Then they lost to Clarkston. There's some concerns with North Farmington, despite the high NPR. They do have a loss to Farmington, even though I don't know. Even though Farmington is lower in the NPR than than North Farmington, but North Farmington, to me, I got some warning signs. I got some concerns with them. I mean, Bloomfield Hills has been on a tear this year. So they're off to a really nice start. I mean, Deron Mason's playing like a Mr. Basketball candidate in the state of Michigan. I'm telling you, Deron Mason could be a Mr. Basketball candidate in the state of Michigan. He's that good. He's that talented. Now, Bloomfield Hills' problem is they're going to have to run through Riverman Brother Rice. That is a difficult matchup. And if they have to play Seaholm in the second round, that could be a very dangerous match for them. So, Bloomfield Hills, they're off to a great start, but I got some concerns with Bloomfield Hills. So when I look at the strengths and concerns list here, and Rochester, Oak Park are my most impressive. My biggest concerns are Avondale, North Farmington, and I would even put Ferndale in this conversation. Now, Sammy, why would you put Ferndale in this conversation? I'll tell you why. Because Ferndale plays a very tough schedule. Their non-conference is absolutely ridiculous. So you think about with Ferndale is, yes, this is going to help you NPR-wise. But you're going to need to find some games where you're blowing people out to give your bench a chance to develop program strength. For me, when I look at Ferndale, is a concern. I think there's just a lot of concerns with Coach Ron Rickman's team. I think there's just a lot of concerns. I mean, yes, you're preparing yourself for a district tournament, for the district championship, for the districts. You're preparing yourself. I mean, like, I get Rickman's mindset. The concern that I have is you look at Ferndale and you look at that district. Yes, Detroit Old Redford has struggled, but there are so many worry signs when I look at the Eagles. And I say that Detroit Old Redford concerns me with Ferndale. They do. And I know Coach Rickman wants to think long term. And you play all these games in the red to get you prepared. You play all these non-league games to get you prepared. The last 2 years since you won a state championship, you have been eliminated in the district. Now, albeit 2 years ago, Warren Lincoln was very good. Ended up going on and winning a D2 state championship. Last year, you ran the Detroit Pershing. And you lost that game in the district semifinal. Something tells me with Detroit Old Redford, that has warning signs written all over it for Coach Ron Rickman. And I know you got Ed Vineyard, you got Toronto Adams, you got others who are very talented. But just that game with Detroit Old Redford just scares me with Ferndale. It just scares me with them. I just don't know why, but it does. So let's look at the divisions now. In the gold, I still think this division is a mess. This division, you got Harper Woods, Oak Park, A&T. Waterford Kettering is kind of like slipped back a little bit. But you look at each of these teams in the gold have strengths, but each of these teams has some flaws. So the team that I think has been playing the best in this division has been Southfield A&T. And I got to give Coach Josh Lyle a lot of credit here. Because he's playing a very tough schedule, tough non-conference, in his first year at A&T. And they have played one of the most, they have played very, very fundamental, very solid basketball. They took in the lessons that the non-conference has given them, and they have paid it off. Then I'd say Harper Woods is probably the second best team in this division because of the transfers, the Canadian transfers. But they've had some games where they've had some really rough losses. I mean, they played Detroit Southeastern and lost a very tough one to the Jungleers by 4. 62-58 was a really good game. But still, it is what it is. Then Oak Park, I would say, is third because of their defense. Waterford Kettering is 4. They're struggling right now. I don't know what's going on with Will Campbell's team. I really don't know what's going on. And then Berkeley's 5. Berkeley's been struggling. And then Ferndale U is 6. They got their first win a couple weeks ago, but they haven't played in a while. So that's another concern that I have with them. So that's the order in the gold right now. The blue, I think this is Bloomfield Hills' division to lose. I think the Blackhawks right now, the way they're playing, obviously Deron Mason's a Mr. Basketball candidate. In my opinion, he should be. If he's not, then something's wrong. And this is all without Carter Canfield. Imagine when he comes back. How that team's going to look. They're going to be different. They're going to be different dynamic-wise. So Bloomfield Hills right now, the way they're playing, the concern that I have with Bloomfield Hills, and I talked about this earlier, is going to be Birmingham Brother Rice. The way that the Warriors are playing right now, that is a serious, serious problem. It really is. Pontiac, I would say, is the second best team, the way they've been playing. Obviously, The freshman there, Pontiac's really improved. I mean, Coverton, he's been playing good ball. Deion Harris did a nice job with that program. He's done a really nice job. Then you look at who's the third best team in that division. Could it be Seaholm? I mean, Seaholm has played much better in league play than they have been in non-conference. They've been really starting to figure it out. Groves has been, so you think about, and then you think about Seaholm's been playing well. Royal Oak, I've been really disappointed with them. I've been just, they started off well in non-league, but they've really struggled since. Troy Athens, I just cannot figure this team out. I mean, 29 points against Seaholm. I don't know what's going on. I know they've been in the news recently. But as a school, I know they've been in the news recently. But I don't know if that's been a factor. I don't know. But something's not right with that. Something really is not right with them. Then Troy's been playing better. They've been competitive. So you look at that division in the blue, I would say Bloomfield Hills, Pontiac, Seaholm, Troy Athens, Royal Oak. That's the blue right now. The red, I still think it's Avondale and Clarkston right now. Those are the two top teams for sure. The third best team is the big question. I think with, you look at, of course, Ferndale's got a case to have that third slot. They played a tough schedule. Farmington's got a case. North Farmington's got a case. Then it's West Bloomfield. West Bloomfield, I still got concerns about them defensively. And then Groves right now, they're struggling. So in the red, I think it's right now Avondale, Clarkston, Ferndale, Farmington, North Farmington, West Bloomfield, and Groves. So that's my take right now on how the division right now is in that division. And then we go to the white. And the white right now, it's still a mess, but Rochester right now, the way that they're playing, they're rolling on all cylinders right now. I look at West Bloom. I look at Rochester right now, 12-0. They haven't had that. They haven't really had that close game yet. I mean, they really haven't had that close game yet. Where the closest they've been, I think, has been 9 points. So, Rochester, I'm curious to see how this team does going forward. Stony Creek had that big emotional win against Adams, 59-56. They're starting to turn things around under Coach Marco Tomic. Adams coming off a win against Lake Orion, a very tough loss against Rochester. Against Adams. Actually against Stony Creek. So you think about with Adams, they're fine. I think Cannon Flynn is. I think Adams is fine. I'm not pressing the panic button yet with them. Waterford Mott coming off a win against Lake Orion in overtime. I still think there's some concerns with Mott. I mean, despite the win against Lake Orion, they've had some tough luck lately. As every team does in basketball, they're going through a little funk right now. Oxford, they're struggling to score. So it's interesting how things have been going with them. So in the white, I would say it's Rochester, Stony Creek, Adams, Waterford Mott, Lake Orion, Oxford. That's what I'm looking at right now when it comes to the divisions right now in the white. so far. Now, I expect everything to change as they do daily because of the NPR and all that. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to sign off here. Make sure you follow the blog at blogspot.com. Also look at the website around the OA at webley.com. So we'll see what happens going forward. I'm going to sign off here. Take care. God bless. Stay warm, everybody. And I'll see you all next week. God bless and God bless.